and down in the audience. Put your hands together for Erwin Tipton. Storybook time. Come in the audience.
All right, we got a full house today. It's story time. It's story time today, people. Hello, everybody. Here we go. Oh, now we're going to do Hansel and Gretel. Okay. Once upon a time, there was a mother and a father and a daughter and a son. Well, the mother and the father worked very, very hard, and they spoiled Hansel and Gretel. That was the children's name. And then it got to a point where the kids were too out of control. They just had, the parents just gave up on them. So, later on in the day, the father, he was a lumberjack. He took Hansel and Gretel out to the forest and left them out there. Boy, these must have been some really bad kids. Don't you all think? Okay, now let's get back to the story. Well, he left the children in the forest, and then the children were wandering around and they came across this house. It was all made out of candy and gingerbread. And then, without even asking permission, they walked up to the old woman's house, the cabin, out in the woods, and started eating on her house. They started eating the shingles, the porch, the doorknob, of all things. And then, what does it say right there? Oh my goodness. The old woman came out and caught them. And she was kind of disturbed, but they were little kids. So she offered to bring them into the house and fix them a really nice lunch and try to find their parents. But instead, Hansel and Gretel was plotting something very, very bad. They waited for the right moment when the old woman had the oven going. And then when the oven reached its maximum heat, the two children, Hansel and Gretel, they grabbed the woman and they threw her in the oven and killed her. And then, are you all getting this? Okay. So after they killed her, there was a horse and a wagon beside the house. So they ate what they could of all the house, and then they packed up what they could inside the wagon, and then they drove off. And Hansel was riding the reins as fast as he could, riding the horses as fast as he could. But then a neighbor checked on the old woman and found her dead. But they remember seeing the two little kids over there. And then the neighbors called the police, and then there was a chase going on. The police were on the horses. They were running as fast as they could. And eventually they caught up with the two kids. But they didn't know it. But these were two evil kids, Hansel and Gretel. Gretel reaches into the back behind the seat and pulls out a rifle. And then she starts shooting at the policemen hiding behind the horses. Are you all keeping up with this? I know this is a scary story. Yeah, I know. And then, finally, the police officers started shooting back. Hansel, he got shot in the head, took his head clean off his shoulders. But Gretel, she kept firing that gun. And eventually, the parents saw what was going on the news. And they rushed over there and they tried to calm Gretel down, to try and get her to put the gun down. But the father knew in his heart that he had spoiled the two children too much. Gave them everything. Gave them a house, the roof over their heads, and an allowance and food and everything. But there was really not much he could do to the point, because the two children had already pulled out the guns and they were firing at the police officers. A horse went down and landed on one of the police officers. And then one officer got a clear shot and he aimed right at her chest, and he took that last shot and Gretel fell right to the ground. Oh my goodness, are you guys getting all this? I know, it's scary. And then after Hansel was dead and Gretel had fallen to the off the carriage and onto the ground, the officers called the parents and didn't know that the father was already there and was motioning, trying to calm the kids down, Gretel down. But that didn't work. But he had the bad news, the bad responsibility to tell the parents that the children were dead. And then, so the father thanked the police officers for doing everything that they could, and the morgue wagon showed up to pick up the two kids, because it was an open and shut case. So, there was no reason for trial. So, they didn't have enough feed to keep giving the horses to make it to the morgue. But there was a county dump nearby. So they just dug a hole and buried the bodies. And then placed a placard that said, "Here lies Hansel and Gretel." There we go. Then the mother shows up, looks over at the father and says, "Well, it looks like we could just try again and try and do the right thing with the kids again." And lo and behold, Hansel and Gretel's mother and father were going to be parents again. And they decided to do the right thing and raise their kids the right way and not spoil them. And the moral of the story is, be good to your children. And children, you be good to your parents, because if you tick them off, they'll leave you for dead. But that's not for reals. A parent is always a parent. But anyways, that was the end of the story. Did you all like that? Oh my goodness. I couldn't read any slower because I'm on a timeline. I only have so much time on the camera. And I know you all want to get back to your perches wherever you go. So anyways, I'll let you all go. I hope you enjoyed story time. And stay tuned. Pretty soon, we're going to have a special guest that'll occasionally appear, Mrs. Doubtwater. So, be looking for her, Mrs. Doubtwater, and subscribe to Erwin Tipton YouTube, and subscribe to all, and follow me on all my social medias, Instagram, Twitter, YouNow, YouTube, Tumblr, Wikipedia. Just look up my name, Erwin Tipton, follow me, and tell your friends and family. And be sure to subscribe to my channel for more exciting videos. See you all later, people! I gotta get backstage.